name is Ryan Mooney. I'm with Arvest Bank here in Springfield, and I normally don't like to throw around titles, but I'm going to tell you my title because it's somewhat important to what I was going to say today. So I'm a vice president in economic development. And you're kind of thinking, what's an economic development person doing in banking? That's a whole nother conversation we can have later if you'd like. But I just was able to attend a annual conference of the International Economic Development Council. It's an organization that provides a professional certification that I hold in economic development. And as I was there with some of my peers from around the country, I was talking to a handful of them, and two of them, one a market a little bit smaller than Springfield and one double the size of Springfield, said, we don't have a business journal, as we got to talking about local media. And I just started thinking, imagine what it would be like trying to do business in Springfield without the SBJ. I mean, we wouldn't have the opportunity to connect like we are today and multiple other times around the year, especially like with the 12 people event where we get to see and hear and know business leaders in our community. But they also don't experience that moment when breaking news hits your inbox and you're like, I just got to stop everything and click on that because you never know what it might be. But Arvest has been proud to sponsor 12 People You Should Know for 15 years. And the reason that we do that is because of that connection that we have with the Business Journal and with our business community and how SBJ brings all of that together. And a great way they do that every time is with 12 People. So I'm going to turn it over to Christine Temple, who is going to do this very special edition of 12 People You Should Know. And if you like it and haven't been to one, you need to check out the remaining months, because there's one a month that you can check out and get to know some of those really great Springfieldians. So here's Christine.
I don't need that, but thank you. Yes. Thank you so much, Ryan. Appreciate you. I'm so glad that this is an intimate crowd right here because this is a late night talk show, so I have to do a monologue to start. At least Beth Doman told me I had to. I thought she did all the funny today, but she said there was like a little bit more funny. So yes, I'm Christine Temple. I'm the executive editor at SBJ, and I had to get ready this morning very early. It was very early. It was very dark. I was trying not to wake my husband up. I'm trying to get ready, putting my shoes on, and I had this PTSD moment. So let's go back to COVID era, right? Like when we didn't wear shoes and we didn't really wear pants, let's be honest, or at least they were like sweatpants. So my first interview ever, right outside of COVID, was the president of Cox Health. And I was thinking about her today because Cox Health is a sponsor of SBJ Connect. So I'm getting ready for that interview. I'm hustling because I forget about drive time. I think we've forgotten about that. Getting ready really quick, get there, ready to do the interview. We're talking about like really heavy stuff, like business operations and ventilators and all this. I look down at my notes. I'm wearing two different shoes. And one is brown and one is black. And I'm trying to focus on interviewing this very, very serious woman, Amanda Hedgepeth. And it is a challenge, let me just tell you. But we somehow got through it, and now I check my shoes way too much before I walk out the door. Thank goodness for that. And she never noticed because she was so focused on what we were actually talking about, which is great. I should have probably been better at that. But you know, SBJ has a booth. They're doing digital headshots. I don't know if you guys saw that. Amazing. Right now, the selection process for who's gonna win this like big photo package is like put your business card in a bowl and we're gonna draw one during the happy hour. I think we need to do a different selection process, which is that I saw a squirrel running around Wilson Logistics Arena. I think whoever finds the squirrel gets the package. It's just a really quick idea. It's simple. But I'm gonna stop trying to be funny because I'm not. But that's okay. And I really appreciate those of you that I asked to laugh that you did. Thank you so much. But yeah, this is 12 People You Need to Know, talk show edition, alumni update. I am really excited for our first guest that is going to join us because he was actually the very first ever 12 People You Need to Know guest for Springfield Business Journal almost 17 years ago. He has since left Springfield, so please give him a hard time about that. But in the meantime, please welcome Mark McFatridge, CEO of Quade. Mark, thank you for being here.
Man, thank you for having me.
I don't know if
I checked my shoes, I'm good.
Okay, I'm so glad because that's a real scary story.
Yeah. And hard pants, I called them hard pants. Instead of sweatpants during COVID, I called them hard pants. So.
Oh, I really like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the vernacular. I appreciate that. Okay, so you were SBJ's first ever 12 people guest, as I mentioned. That was in 2008. You were leading Regions Bank here locally. It was known when you came on as the worst performing bank in the group. What interested you in that challenge of leading Regions Bank, and did you turn it around?
Yeah, so the funny story is, I was in Indianapolis. I had a role with the Midwest region as a CFO and CAO, and one day my boss came in. He was my mentor. It was a Friday afternoon. He shuts the door behind me. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, hey, look, our community banks in Missouri and Western Kentucky are underperforming. I said, yep. He goes, I think it's because they're reporting into a guy in St. Louis who's great, but he doesn't have the time to get to Columbia and Springfield and Paducah and whatever. And he said, so I'm going to create this new banking group. And I go, man, that's a great idea. He said, good, you're moving to Springfield, Missouri. So I don't know that it interested me. It was, I didn't have a choice. It was, you're moving. And so funny, my wife's in the audience. I said, on my way home, I stopped off and I bought a map and a bottle of wine. And I said, honey, guess what?
Guess what? Yeah. So then how did that bank end up when you left there?
Yeah, really good. We turned it around in really short order, honestly, and moved from bottom quartile and literally everything you can measure to top quartile and almost everything you can measure. So
you went on to hold roles here locally at Oakstar Bank, Guarantee Bank, Metropolitan National Bank. That became a best bank to work for by American Banker. What interested you to get into banking in the first place?
So I was a failed accountant. So I was an accounting major in college, and when you graduated, especially back at that time, you went into public accounting. And so I did, and I hated it, like from day one. And I fell into banking, and it became just an opportunity to use kind of that accounting background and education, but by working with people and helping them and being out and that kind of stuff. So I kind of fell into it, but I did it for 25, 30 years, something, I don't know, a long time. So it was awesome.
What are some of your proudest accomplishments as you think back on your career in banking?
You know, that you referenced the American Banker Best Banks to Work For. That was really cool. So, you know, we took over, I came into Metropolitan in February of 2012, and it was after the downturn, and we didn't have a great culture, honestly. We had been beaten down by the regulators, we had been beaten down by just everybody, and so we were able to turn it around. And so in a year, we focused on culture, like immediately we focused on culture. And so I kind of lied to my team. American Banker this was the first year that they were coming out with the best banks to work for, and it was a survey, and it was a cultural survey. So all of it came from our employees. And I wanted a free way to measure how our culture was doing. And so I'm like, we're going to do this. I don't know if we're not in it to win it. I want some results, right? And so we got those results one day, and it was like, damn, we made it. So that's pretty well up there.
So you ended up leaving Springfield about a decade ago, and you have founded this company, Quade. So your career has taken a divergence from banking, and you're focusing now on high-performing CEOs. Tell me about what the company is and why you wanted to start it.
Yeah, great question. So when I came to Springfield in 2006, I joined a CEO peer group that had a chapter here, and it literally changed my life. It changed my life because it truly is lonely at the top, and it's hard for CEOs and presidents and business owners to have people that they can talk to, and just share everything that's going on in their world. And so I'm still in that CEO peer group, but there are some requirements that it takes to get there, revenue size and age and whatever. So I'm like, everybody needs this. And so I decided to start it, and I did. I launched Quade in 2021. It was supposed to be a lifestyle business. I was going to have a couple of little groups, and that was going to keep me busy and out of Deb's hair for a while. And we're continuing to scale, and today we're not only in Indianapolis, we have virtual circles, we're recruiting for circles in Tampa, Los Angeles, New York, and we'll add Chicago and Denver first quarter of next year. So.
Yeah. What have you seen as the impact of that company, and how many CEOs do you have involved?
Yeah, so they're in groups of 8 to 10, and so I think we have 60, we'll have 100 by the end of this year that are involved. Just having that group that they know once a month for 4 hours, they can talk about anything that's going on in their world with other CEOs who are experiencing the same thing. And we've seen people that have launched their own company. We've seen people that have made personnel decisions because they had this resource that they could talk to. We've seen strategic plans be crumpled up and restarted because they had access to people that could help them that they never had before, that pushed them, that challenged them to be bigger or do other things. And it's just a really cool thing to see.
Yeah. Mark, thanks for coming back to Springfield.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. We'll give you a little bit of razzing later for leaving.
That's okay.
At least you came back. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're going to bring on our next guest. Our next guest was a 12 people you need to know in 2019. And please help me welcome Lyle Foster. It'll take me about as long for him to walk up here to say all the things that Lyle does. He's the owner of Big Mama's Espresso and Coffee, Q Inoteca, Queen City Soul Food. He's an MSU professor. He's a community activist and volunteer. And I'm sure that there are more things that he might think of on the way up here. Oh, and there we go, a performer.
What's up, my brother?
I'm here for you, man.
I'm thinking about late night talk show.
Thank you so much. If we only had some music.
Yeah, no, we need some good music.
Yeah. We'll fix that. We'll fix that for next time. Okay, so Lyle, you were a 12 people guest in 2019, as I said, and at that time, we talked a lot about the vision that you had for Commercial Street. So you came to Springfield. You're a new resident here, right, in the 2000s, and you're looking at Commercial Street, and you saw a vision for something different. Tell me about kind of where Commercial Street was when you opened Big Mama's in 2007, and talk about it today.
Well, I think it's a far cry in 2007 from what it is today. We had about a 50% vacancy on first floor storefronts. A lot of the, because it's a nationally recognized historic district, a lot of the older buildings were being redeveloped, renovated with lofts upstairs. Today, we've got a lot of Airbnbs. All of the lofts are occupied, and instead of a 50% vacancy, we've got about 60 businesses and a large variety of businesses, particularly in terms of restaurants. So it's very, very different. We're still trying to move forward. I think also, probably most important, I think the reputation. Because, I mean, to be candid, you know, many people thought of Commercial Street as somewhat of a scary place, and people were very concerned about visiting. And I think now it's really become one of the favorite destinations in our city.
What did you see as the potential on that street when it didn't look at all like it does today?
I love the fact that it was a linear district. So it was almost like an outdoor, what we look at today as lifestyle center. So it was already there. The nice, you know, the city was beginning to do streetscape work. But I just thought that it could be a nice walkable area. I remember you didn't see families, you didn't see people walking dogs. I mean, but I saw that the way that the architectural style of the buildings was very interesting. And the city was beginning to think about an entertainment district, just beginning to look at strategic initiatives to change the complexion, if you will, of Commercial Street. And I said, well, if any of this moves forward, I think it's got a chance. And I somehow stumbled into it and felt like I'd like to be a part of it.
So as we kind of mentioned at the top there, you know, you have a lot of different titles behind your name. People may not know also that you are a Brown University and a Yale University and a Mizzou grad. Of course, now you are a professor at Missouri State University, but you also have developed the Tough Talk series here in town, having hard conversations about important topics with stakeholders. You also do diversity and inclusion training kind of across the country. feels like that theme throughout your career and life has been learning and education. Where did that passion come from?
Well, I'll try to make this a really quick story. My mother, I grew up in the state of Virginia, very close to Jamestown, Williamsburg, Yorktown, so that colonial, if you will, history of our nation. And my mother was an elementary school teacher, and of course that was during the era of segregation, so she taught in an all-black school. And of course she would tell me, don't go into teaching because it didn't pay anything. And I tried to take her advice, but my grandmother was also a school teacher. And my mother was from Virginia, well, really Essex County. And about, 5 or 6 years ago, I was visiting her gravesite at the little kind of country church. And I saw this little replica building in the back of the main church. And I was like, what is that? What is that? I don't remember seeing this. And I called my cousin who lives in Washington, D.C., and I said, what is that little building behind the main church? She says, you don't know, Lyle? She said, that's a replica of the one-room schoolhouse that your grandmother taught in. And it was just like something just clicked and, kind of like a very cathartic moment. And I just realized it was in my DNA. So I was like, whether I wanted to or not, being a teacher is in my DNA. And my daughter is a university basketball coach, and I think that's a form of teaching as well. So I just kind of settled into it, and I've always taught at some level. And then when I arrived at Missouri State, I just accepted the fact, well, I couldn't avoid this even if I tried.
Do you have some highlights of your career? Oh, Marty Goodnight is trying to do a commercial break in the middle of our talk show. Unheard of. That kind of feels like a car commercial break is what we had just now. So this is very true. This is a very highly produced talk show. We'll give him some problems later.
That makes it legit.
It makes it totally legit. Yeah, I want to see what my cut is going to be of this car commercial. But when you think about your educational career and your training career, are there some highlights that stick out to you?
Well, sometimes it feels a little awkward to talk about. One of the things was I was in a doctorate program many, many years ago, but you could stop when you got your master's. And so I fell in love and I stopped. But in the back of my mind, I was always wanting to go back and get that last degree. And so in my 50s, I went to Mizzou to get a doctorate. And I just really remember the first day going on campus, I was like, what? Kind of like the imposter syndrome. What were you thinking, you idiot? It was 90 degrees. I had a backpack and a briefcase, and I had to sit in a little schoolroom chair, and I was like, dude, you don't have the time, you don't have the energy, and you can't even think about statistics and data at this point in your life. I was just like, I was mad. My kids were like, what are you doing, Dad? But at the same time, it was something I wanted to accomplish. And so I felt like that was a highlight personally. But in terms of just in general, I love teaching students. I think today's students are some of the most incredible humans we have. But at the same time, I think they have some of the biggest challenges ever as well. And the opportunity to impart, hopefully, to mentor, to leave something with them, to encourage them in their career. And whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, I'm at this stage now where when I go around town, and I feel like when I eat out in places or do different things, I've got to be on my best behavior because sometimes as a former student, and not all of them are in, what you might call professional careers. Some of them are, in the hospitality business. So if I don't like the food somewhere, I've got that's great because I had you as my teacher. And I was like, I'm so glad I didn't, the other day I was in Chick-fil-A drive-through and it was one of my students. But I love to see them and see what they're doing, learn about their lives, see their families, see their jobs and what they're doing with themselves. And that's a great sense of rewardment for that.
The last few years, you've been doing something you probably would have never expected would be on your resume. You actually helped as a steward of funding for the county and for Springfield. It was about $34 million in CARES funding that you were the administrator for, and about $58 million in ARPA funds. How are you selected for this role?
I still don't know. But I tell you what, to give out almost $100 million in Greene County and Springfield is one of the coolest things in a person's life. But I was actually, the county reached out to me a lot, largely, I suppose, because of my community work. And obviously, the pandemic was something extremely, extremely unfortunate, and we still have the repercussions of that. But I think the opportunity to help see our community rebuild and our economy, you know, just kind of look in terms of what are the opportunities to make some legacy investments as a result of that, has been a tremendous experience. Greene County and the commissioners, the staff have just been just the most awesome people to work with. But more importantly as well, I think our small businesses, the many nonprofits, as well as our community partners, which will be the various villages, City of Springfield, police and fire, and different groups that were funded. It's just incredible. I started to bring this book with me. We just put our final report out for what we've done in the last year and a half, and so hundreds of organizations were funded. But now you're seeing the projects. Believe it or not, we did what was called the CIP, Community Impact Programs, and so those were legacy investments, so they were larger, multi-million-dollar grants. And this arena was actually one of our top projects that was partially funded with Greene County ARPA dollars. So every time I come into this building, I'm like, yeah, ARPA's funds help to build this. And it's super cool because of all the things that are taking place here. So it's been a great, great experience. And there are still projects that are underway now at Burrell, and Vecino is building affordable housing on Commercial Street, some of the first affordable housing on the north side, like of this magnitude in decades. And we love that. Mental health was the top priority in our community. And we're going to be having some new facilities in that. The Boys and Girls Club, we're doing a new facility, and just the many nonprofits that have been assisted. So yes, great, great experience.
You're going to keep seeing that impact for decades and decades
And that's the goal.
to come.
That's the goal.
Lyle, thank you so much for coming back for our alumni update.
I'm still here. Thank you.
Okay, so now just imagine Pfizer is going across the screen. This is our Pfizer commercial. But our last guest for our 12 People You Need to Know alumni update is Jaimie Trussell. She's the CEO of Council of Churches of the Ozarks.
I'm having nightmares about falling on my face, just like the first day of philosophy class at Missouri State.
Thank you for being here, Jaimie. Oh, and we got some music too.
That was fantastic.
Becoming an even better talk show.
We should have worked that out better. Yeah.
Jaimie, thank you so much for
Thank you.
being here. So in 2021, you were one of our 12 people you need to know. You were very new, just a baby CEO of Council of Churches of the Ozarks. And you're someone who says that you really learn from your failures. And you have said that you've had a lot of them. I have not said that. You said that. And getting back up is kind of how you learn and grow.
Right.
I'm wondering kind of what have been some of those biggest moments that you can reflect on since that moment that you were on the 12 people stage, as far as the things you didn't know and what you know now.
The biggest thing I learned, and man, failure is a powerful teacher, but the biggest thing I learned was what you don't know is the thing that is going to get you. And so the thing I learned is you have to ask way more questions than you have time for. You have to spend way more time doing everything than you thought you did. It's going to take longer than you ever dreamed to accomplish the things that you thought would be easy, because those curveballs, that is the one constant. Those curveballs will come, and it's how you respond when they come. And the only way you can be as prepared as possible is to slow down, which is the opposite of my personality.
Your personality has probably been one of the things that has, made you so successful in development, right? Where does that come from? Just that ability to never meet a stranger and always have a smile on your face.
Well, I think I was born that way. My mom used to tell everyone, Jaimie never met a stranger, but the stranger the better. So I would often freak her out when we were out in public, from 3-4 years old, and just find the scariest looking person and be best friends with them. And, I just want to go and know everything about everybody. It also helps that every single other person in my family is critically shy. I remember ordering at McDonald's when I was 9 for the whole family because they didn't want to make eye contact with the person behind the counter. So I was the spokesperson for our entire family, and you know, you just go with your strengths, I guess. So, yeah, I truly love people. I studied anthropology in college because I just love people. I was telling Mark, he's probably going, what? They also drive me crazy, Mark. People are fascinating and puzzling, and that is what makes them so interesting and sometimes so frustrating. When you work with a lot of people, you see them at their best, and you see them at maybe their not so best days. And that gets tiresome no matter how much you love them. Every parent knows that. There are days you want to just get your kids. But yeah, it helps if you love people.
So you absolutely could not be shy about the endeavor you took about last year, which was bringing Council of Churches of the Ozarks under one roof for the first time ever in the nonprofit's history. It was an $8.2 million headquarters. What was the vision that you had for that? When did that kind of start, and how'd you make it happen?
Whew. Well, it's a faith-based organization, so I like to thank the creator for making it possible. I also have to thank this guy, because that ARPA funding definitely came in to help. So thank you, Lyle. We really appreciate the support of Greene County. Truly, when I moved into the Council of Churches, I had never been a CEO. I had only been a fundraiser. It was a big change of pace. The person who came before me, his name is Mark Struckhoff. Wonderful guy, very calm, very pastoral. I remember thinking, I am not calm, and probably not pastoral. You know, growing up Baptist, that was not something I thought of myself as, but I am a loud and proud advocate of the work that the council does. In that one of the first days I moved into my office, I remember opening a file drawer and seeing this little hand-drawn concept of all of the different programs under one roof. It was a hand-drawn Dorsey's dream, our founder's dream, that we would all operate under one roof. And I thought, well, why not? And we were in 5 different properties around Springfield. We had about $1 million in deferred maintenance. You can't operate with leaky roofs and boilers that are about to explode, and our freezer at Crosslines failed catastrophically. It didn't make sense anymore to keep putting money into a footprint that would never be this vision where someone could come and get all the help and services they need. And so I wish I could say it was my idea. It wasn't my idea. It was a great idea. It wasn't my idea. But knowing that that was always the vision and dream, and knowing the cost of doing nothing was so much greater, it was a lot easier to take that leap and say, well, of course, let's launch a capital campaign in the middle of a global pandemic. What could possibly go wrong? A lot of things went terribly wrong. But the good news is we came out on the other side, and we had the support of the community, and just, it worked. We paid the building off in 18 months, 8.2 plus. But we're very proud of that.
So Council of Churches has publicly been exploring a brand update, right? And so SBJ has reported on this because of this concept of, does this reflect who you are as an organization? Mm-hmm. So tell me where you are in that process. Right. But then also, you know, how do you honor the past and look forward?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. So again, opening that drawer in my office when I came to the Council of Churches, there was not one, but several brand studies that said, you know, the Council of Churches isn't actually a council of churches. Perhaps you should do something about that. And unfortunately, because it takes time and resources to rebrand, we had never been able to pull the trigger on doing something different. You guys would probably be shocked to know only 3% of our funding actually comes from churches. And there is no council that meets and tells me what to do. I keep waiting for them. It's mostly just my board. So we worked first with United Way and their Day of Greatness, where they bring in a bunch of brand experts to brainstorm with us. That got the ball rolling on an RFQ, where we talked to different advertising agencies. We were selected by Campaignium as their charity of choice, and they're up to here in our brand, and we will be announcing a new brand in January of 2025. So, woo! Yes, stay tuned for that. I can't tell you what it is because I promised I wouldn't, but it's gonna be amazing.
But you're gonna tell SBJ. It's going to be in the pages of
First.
We're recording this, so good. So I want to ask you all a question, kind of a quick lightning round before we get to our game. You all have had really successful careers. You were all selected as 12 people you need to know. There's probably some other people here that might be future 12 people you need to know. What's your biggest piece of advice that you could give to leaders or people who aspire to become a leader?
Ooh, don't believe your own press. There are a lot of people, this is the tough thing, because there are a lot of people who will adore you and tell you wonderful things, and those may all be true. There are also people who will hate you for no good reason, and they may have reasons, but the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Perspective is a beautiful thing. So really, you gotta hone in on who you really are and where your identity comes from, and know that your mom is probably always gonna say wonderful things about you, and your mother-in-law may say something entirely different. And that is just fine, because you be true to yourself, and you gotta stay true to that.
For me, I think it's listen to understand, not to respond. Taking that time to really hear what somebody's saying, not to interrupt them, let them flesh out their whole thought, so that you can take the time to listen and to hear what they're really saying, and to prepare a response or become educated in something that you didn't know about. So for me, I think that listening piece is huge.
I might say, know why you're doing what you're doing and be true to yourself. I think sometimes people who are in the forefront, a lot of opportunities may come to you, but it's one thing different about the opportunity versus fulfilling that opportunity, because you really need to have that passion that you can be doing that every day, because, a year later, 2 years later, you still should be feeling excited about that. So I think you want to really be careful to make sure this is something you want to be a part of the long haul. Sure, there are people who start stuff and just kind of, always are starting new things, but I think it's also really great to be just so passionate and committed. I can do this for a long time.
Lyle, I think one of the things you also touched on there was being true to yourself. And one of the things that I talk about a lot is being unapologetically authentic. Like I am who I am, and in every scenario. And I think that is really important. That genuineness, that authenticity, that people that you're ultimately going to lead need to see that and respect that, and that will go a long, long way.
I agree. Thank you.
Agreed. That's fabulous. Okay, so we know you guys a little bit professionally. We've gotten to know a little bit of personal stories. I had no idea any of these facts that our 12 People alumni submitted to me. We're going to play a little game. It has a terrible name because it's a late night show. This is the things you didn't know about the people you need to know. And we're going to read the facts out. You guys need to decide amongst yourselves pretty quickly who you think the fact belongs to. Feel free to poll the audience. That's totally fine. So the first fact here is, I once survived 2 years with no television or internet. They're dumbfounded. Yeah.
I'm putting my money on Jaimie.
Jaimie?
I am unapologetically authentic, yes. I like to tease people that I'm half Amish. I'm not really. I don't even know what that means. But we really didn't have a TV, and people would say, is that your final answer? Because it was the era of that TV show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And I was like, what are you talking about? Because I had missed that cultural reference entirely. But we weren't bored. We were newlyweds.
Yeah. You found things to do. That's good. You survived. Good. Okay, so our next fact here is, I played in an orchestra.
I'm going to say Mark. I'm going to say Mark.
Mark? Yeah, what would he play? What's your instrument, Mark?
Silence is my instrument.
Lyle?
Okay, so are we going with Mark?
Yes.
I think. No, well, it wasn't. But it was Lyle. Lyle, what did you play?
Well, my family lived in Washington, D.C. for a couple of years growing up, and I played in a pretty good youth symphony orchestra, and I played drums.
Wow.
Nice.
It was an orchestra.
Yep.
That's great. Okay, this one is a real tricky one. I am a level 1 sommelier.
Oh, I know what this is.
He owns Q Anateca.
Yes.
No, that's got to be Mark.
Yes, one of these guests does own a wine shop, so. Who are you
Do we
voting
have
for?
sommeliers in Springfield?
Not at the Baptist church where I attend,
They can use some wine.
but not in public.
Mark.
Okay, Mark,
I'm going with Lyle.
Lyle. Oh, we're divided. Okay, who is it? Mark.
That would be me. Yeah.
Ooh, I got to
guys
learn
are
more
good.
about that.
They're
That's cool.
sneaky.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's very cool.
How'd you get involved in that?
I like to drink wine, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about it, and I was just fascinated by it. And I'm also cheap, so I wanted to find more value rather than just going and buying a Napa cab. And so I got some exposure to that, and yeah, it's a blast.
Nice.
That's great.
You should have brought a mystery wine and let them see him at work.
I know,
That
right?
would be cool.
Yeah. We'll bring you back next
There's
year.
a
and do
happy hour.
that.
Yes, there you go.
Blindfold them and guess it.
Oh,
Okay, so with our last 3 facts. I was recently in a movie premiere in Los Angeles. This is a
Why are
very
you laughing?
silent, everyone's thinking very intently for this game.
I think it's one of those, like,
Okay, who are we voting for?
I'm going back to Lyle.
Lyle.
I think it's Lyle.
Lyle? Lyle? Yeah. Well, Larnell, does it have to do with your son?
Yeah, my son. He was a producer on a film that just premiered at an indie film festival. And I had a little, well, just a little role. I had a role in the film, cameo role, and I went out to the premiere, red carpet, and at the Chinese Theater, downtown LA.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
That had
That's
to be a
awesome.
blast.
It was a blast. It was pretty cool.
That's great. Okay, now this one. We have a final 2. I was a cheerleader in high school.
Mark. That's got to be Jaimie.
Okay, Jaimie, I mean, she kind of has a cheerleader vibe.
Yeah.
Positive, rallies people together.
Right?
I will own the vibe, but not the fun fact. I'm
Ooh.
going to say it's Mark.
Mark?
It's got to be Jaimie, right?
Okay, are we voting for Jaimie?
Wait a minute, Chief. Mark, give it up. I want to say Jaimie, but Marcus kind of played it like he could have been. He might have been a tumbler. I don't know.
If falling down is tumbling,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all me.
Because of how big the town was you grew up in.
Okay, well, who's going to pull their pom-pom out of their jacket here?
That would be me.
Oh my goodness.
True story. We had football players that were bases that would lift the cheerleaders. So I was a cheerleader for basketball in Logansport, Indiana.
That is awesome.
That's great.
That is awesome.
Awesome, too.
We're going to have some wine, some drums,
Man.
some cheering. This is going to be a good happy hour.
It'll be a party.
Yeah, it's going to be a party. Okay, our last fact. My dad, a real cowboy, used me to see if horses were broke starting at 4 years old.
Well, I'm
Some
doing
of
this
us had a
by
heart.
process of elimination. I've been nailed twice. You've been nailed twice. It's got to be Jaimie.
The outgoing Jaimie Trussell.
This is a true fact, Jaimie?
This is a true fact. My dad worked on a ranch breaking horses. He's broken his neck twice. He knew they were ready to go back to the owner when he could put his little girl on them and she could ride him around. So that started when I was 4, which my mom did not approve of whatsoever. But yes, we are all avid horse people now.
That is where your strength comes from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Dropped on the head multiple times.
You guys, this was a blast. Thank you so much for coming to our 12 People You Need to Know alumni update. If you'd please join me in a round of applause. Well, I think next on the agenda is a happy hour at 4. So you have a drink ticket in your lanyard, and Mark is going to be passing out all of the drinks and telling you all the tasting notes. I think that I'm sensing peach, tobacco, smoke. Like, what are all the, right? Am
Yeah,
I
you're
doing
on it. Yeah, tar. Yeah.
Tar, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it,
Thank
Christine.
you.
Thank you.